And that's what gets me up in the morning and gets me excited to do things like this, is to talk to individuals who have that same passion to do something positive for our environment.
Yeah, and solving complex problems.
Absolutely.
Welcome to the Environmental Transformation Podcast, where we bring you interviews with industry leaders, climate champions, sustainability practitioners, EHS and hazmat professionals making an impact in their businesses today. Each leader solving complex challenges and delivering solutions within their areas of expertise. I'm your host, Sean Grady, and thanks for joining us today. Before we jump in, make sure to follow us on your devices and visit my website at www.seankgrady.com and sign up for our newsletter and email announcements. Now let's get started.
Welcome to the Environmental Transformation Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Grady. Today's guest is Taryn McKnight. Taryn is one of the leading PFAS leaders and thought leaders in the industry who works for Eurofins Laboratories. And Taryn, you are a two-time guest on the show. So thankful for you to come back on the show. And this time we're actually meeting in person. This is our first opportunity to do that. So I'm super excited.
Thanks for having me back.
Absolutely. So Taryn, we're here at the Battelle Conference here in Dallas, Fort Worth. And wow, it's everything PFAS here, it seems like. I mean, I know it's the chlorinated conference, but I think it's really the PFAS conference. Yeah. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, it is. It's much more the fluorinated conference at this point.
Yeah, there you go. It's kind of morphed. They just didn't catch up with the name.
Yeah.
But no, it's been great to see all the participants here and all the technology that's out there. As we look at the landscape of PFAS, it's in the regulatory frameworks that we're all trying to achieve limits and criteria and solutions for. Let's kind of dive into what is the status of the PFAS regulations in the U.S. right now.
Yeah, so there were a lot of regulations that the previous administration had put forth and got over the finish line. And then we had a new administration, a new Congress come in, and there was a lot of pending litigation over those regulations. So the status we're in right now is kind of a holding pattern. What is going to happen with those cases? And this is all going to be decided in the courts, right? So there were challenges to the drinking water MCLs and to the CERCLA hazardous substance designation.
Oh, yeah, that was a big one.
And those are both still pending.
Okay.
I think the most significant one is the drinking water regulation, because you've got public water systems that have to come into compliance with those rules.
Yes, they do.
And that takes years to prepare for. And the clock is ticking with all of this uncertainty about whether these rules are going to stand or they're going to fall.
Yeah, and if I'm correct, I believe the compliance deadline is 2029. Right?
It is actually 2029. So EPA just came out with their announcement about a proposal to extend that deadline.
That's right.
But that requires a rulemaking process, and that takes time to carry forward public comment and all the reviews.
That's a process.
So hopefully that option to extend to 2030 goes through, but we
don't know.
We don't know. And then the other part of that proposal is to rescind part of the drinking water regulation, right? Just keep an MCL for PFAS and get rid of the rest. But it's not up to EPA to rescind that rule.
Okay.
So in the Safe Drinking Water Act, there's a no-backsliding provision that prohibits the EPA from ever making a promulgated drinking water rule less restrictive.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. That's an interesting little tidbit.
Because of that, they don't have the option to rescind that by rulemaking.
So they have to rely on the courts to allow them to do that.
So the courts will have to decide whether the drinking water regulation was established in accordance with the statute, the Safe Drinking Water Act.
Right.
If they decide it wasn't, then the rule becomes null and void. It's like it never existed. And then there's no backsliding provision effect, right?
Right.
So then EPA can move forward with their proposal to just regulate PFAS. But if the judges don't throw out the rule, then that's it. We're stuck with that.
Wow. And so Is there a timeline for this decision that they discussed? Or we know?
All we know is that they're expecting oral arguments to proceed this fall.
Okay, so we
and
still have
it
some
is
time.
unlikely that we would get a decision from the court before next year, maybe at best early next year, but certainly not this year.
Okay. All right.
And again, that clock is still
That
ticking
clock is ticking.
while we're waiting for
right.
that decision.
And so a lot of the utilities are, in essence, in limbo to some degree because they probably don't want to do certain aspects of the investment they need to make to be in compliance, right?
Yeah.
Because they're going to hedge their bets in a sense to wait to see what the courts are
at
gonna
a
do.
minimum, they have to start monitoring. So that's part of the compliance timeline requirements.
That's true.
So,
right.
so they're kind of stuck there. They've got to start the monitoring. They can't wait for the courts to decide on that aspect.
Right.
And then
And
a lot of them have the UCMR data already.
Right.
So they know what they're potentially dealing with. But
it's interesting.
messy situation.
There's a lot of affected communities that are really up in arms about this pullback or this proposed pullback of PFAS regulation.
So the thing about that, though, if you look at the UCMR data, it does not justify setting an MCL for those other compounds. So the occurrence data from our UCMR monitoring exercise says we rarely ever detect those compounds in drinking water.
So you're specifically meaning like the short chain Gen X level compounds?
Yeah, like the Gen X HFPODA was detected in 3 public water systems.
Okay, so it's and then it was those parameters were part of the UCMR or UCMR 5 analyte list, and so you're saying only a handful occasions that even come into play.
So rescinding them materially has no effect.
Not a big issue.
All the public water systems that had exceedances for PFO and PFAS were going to have to proceed anyways if EPA's new rule were to take effect.
Right.
And then there were almost no exceedances of the others anyway. So those weren't going to drive any remediation, or there weren't the exposure risks there either.
There are, I would imagine there are a few of those, though, impacted communities that do have the short chains that are out there. Maybe like the Cape Fear River
certainly
watershed.
Most of those, though, they are well aware of their contamination and having to address those already. And they're
not through all consent decrees and stuff like that, right?
And not all small systems are part of UCMR 5. So it's true for smaller communities. We don't necessarily know what their exposure profile looks like.
Okay, good point.
But in large part, the UCMR data would not have justified, per the normal process for rulemaking for a drinking water rule, you'd get the occurrence data, and then that would inform whether you established a national primary drinking water regulation. And in this case, it would not have.
So in a way, the decision for EPA to pull back the 4 is not as detrimental as perceived maybe by some in the public arena.
I agree. Yeah.
Okay. I think I can understand that perspective. And 2, if I'm focusing on PFO and PFAS, I'm going to get,
if you're treating probably for those, you're treating for the others.
You're getting the other ones too, right? Yeah. So I get that kind of like, I'm going to get them anyways concept, right? So, which is, that's, I think, a fair point.
Yeah. I just think the most important thing is for people to understand the drinking water MCLs are very much still in effect. They have not been rescinded.
Right. So you still have to comply.
Yeah.
I think that little nuance is something that I believe some states are still probably, because they're waiting to see what EPA is doing. They're not, a lot of the state agencies are not moving forward with a lot of their own internal criteria developments. I've recently been educating and presenting a lot of the environmental state agencies on what we do as a company with Bilott on PFAS treatment and our capabilities in water and waste. And it's been very enlightening to see some of the concerns that some states have. Some states, they're like, well, we really don't have a problem here, really, which, okay.
Yeah.
I guess I could see that. But in certain states, they're like, oh, yeah, we have a big problem. But what we found, by and large, Taryn, is that biosolids was the biggest issue that they're all grappling with, because it is getting accumulated in wastewater that's being processed and treated. And that biosolids traditionally has been used as land application amendments, nutrient amendments to crops and whatnot. And now they're worried about the bioaccumulation aspect of that.
Yeah, I agree. The wastewater and biosolids is a real primary focus now at this point for most of the states, and still on EPA's radar. So this administration has made it clear that they're more interested in deregulation than proposing new regulations. However, on the wastewater side, they are still proposing to move forward with addressing PFAS in wastewater. So whether that's through effluent limitation guidelines for industry or addressing it in NIPD's permits, there is some movement still there, and the states very much are having to figure out how to navigate this as well.
You're right. And there were a few states we've had discussions with who are a little more proactive than others, where they are implementing PFAS discharge limits in pretreatment industrial discharge permit. And guidance on that. Others are like, well, we don't really want to do anything until we have better understanding of what EPA is doing. And so, and it's a resource issue, a technical capability as well. And so we're seeing a lot of states just pull back and say, well, we're going to just wait and see what happens.
Or they wait for another state to figure it out that has some resources.
That's right. Yep. I mean, Michigan comes to mind. New Jersey's kind of pretty active. There's a few others, but I would say a lot of the other ones are just, we're going to wait and see. And that's understandable too. Because
limited resources.
And by law, the states are required to at least be as stringent as the EPA, and you could be more if you want to. But so I think they're all just waiting to see what's going to be the bar. What's the bar here, right? So that's going to be interesting. Where do you see the industry going with the challenges around some of the, I guess I would call it he talked about the CERCLA designation of being a hazardous constituent.
Challenged in the court. We're still waiting on that decision.
I do have some, I guess I'd call it sympathy for like a passive receiver of waste. That they're like, look, we didn't cause this problem and we don't want to be held liable under CERCLA. I think there's a lot of reasons to reconsider where that provision sits within the regulatory environment.
EPA does not have the authority to address passive receivers. Only Congress can address that. So EPA did the best they could by clarifying their discretionary authority and clarifying that with their discretion, they will not be going after what they consider to be passive receivers.
Exactly.
But that's the best they can do. They can't prohibit anyone else from making a third-party claim.
Exactly, which is the crux of the problem right there, right?
So Congress has been debating this for years.
Okay.
Every year they propose bills to address this, and every year they do not pass. It seems like this year there's a little more traction than previous years. But they have a really big question to answer. I think most people can get behind treatment plant, a landfill are very much passive receivers. They did nothing to contribute to this contamination. They're just a pass-through for it. But where do you draw the line? Is the local fire station a passive receiver, or your local airport that was mandated by the federal government to use these
the
phones?
AFFF,
is the farm that land applied the biosolids that had PFAS that led to contamination off-site? Where do you draw the line?
Right? You get the military as well, right? They're in there. They're the federal government.
Mandated by the federal government. So I think
it's complicated.
My guess is that's what makes it hard to get this bill over the finish line. But
you're spot on that. I've been watching this too, and really observing the complexity of the situation. We as a company that I work for, we're obviously very concerned about the passive receiver kind of situation. As are so many other of us that are in the same industry.
Hello, ET Nation. I want to thank you for listening to the podcast. If you're enjoying the interviews we bring you, consider supporting the program by visiting my website at seankgrady.com and buy me a cup of coffee. Proceeds will go towards helping me continue producing timely content and offset production costs. I'd also like to take a moment and recognize a few of our sponsors of the show who have been amazing partners and are ET Nation legends. If you're looking for a drilling and environmental contracting firm to help you delineate the extent of contamination at your site, then look no further than Cascade Environmental. Cascade has over 37 offices across the country and offers a huge range of environmental and geotechnical drilling, site characterization, and remediation services. With their huge fleet of equipment and nationwide coverage, Cascade is a great choice to support your environmental and infrastructure needs. To learn more, check out their website at cascade-env.com. That's cascade-env.com. Hey, are you looking for an equipment rental company to help you with your next wastewater remediation or waste management project? E-Tank is the only environmental equipment rental company in the industry that offers 100% guaranteed, certified clean temporary liquid storage tanks at no additional cost. This protocol gives peace of mind for the previous customer by limiting their downstream liability, as well as the future customer by preventing any cross-contamination for all of their rental tanks. E-Tank also runs a one-of-a-kind complete maintenance program for all rental items, including liquid-tight roll-off containers, fluid transfer pumps, and filtration items. The next time you are presented with an environmental challenge, call E-Tank to come up with the solution for your problem. I want to thank one of our sponsors, WasteLink. WasteLink is the all-in-one software platform transforming how environmental professionals manage waste, connecting generators, service providers, and disposal facilities in a way that is simple, connected, and transparent. Their platform helps streamline everything from waste profiling and routing to inventory management and billing, giving you the tools you need to operate more efficiently and reduce cost. Whether you're a generator looking for better options or a service provider seeking greater efficiency, WasteLink has you covered. If you're ready to take control of your waste management processes and optimize your business, visit wasteLink.com to schedule a demo today.
It's interesting times. I kind of think that they should take the provisions of hazardous and move it out of CERCLA, put it in RECRA.
Yeah.
Just put it in RECRA. It's a better program to be under in my mind. But
that would probably fall under this administration won't be putting forth any new regulations.
Yeah, probably so. Yeah, I would agree. Yeah. When you talk about this administration with EPA, have you ever experienced the amount of news updates, regulatory happenings, program development? I've never seen that so with the speed and frequency that I've seen the EPA, which is
there's headlines about PFAS,
yeah.
and I think that's part of the complication is this stuff is very complex and headlines don't capture complexity. And so people read headlines like EPA's pulled back the drinking water route. And it's like, well, that's not exactly.
Wait a minute.
Read on.
Right. The sky is falling. What happened?
Yeah.
No, you're right. And there's a lot of interest in this topic across the board. A lot of affected communities. I've had a few interviews with the Cape Fear organization, and Emily Donovan there. She's just a fabulous individual, and they genuinely have real impact concerns. Yes. And I feel for them because they have been living in an exposed environment more than a lot of other people.
Well, and it's their advocacy, honestly, that has led to all of this activity.
And shout out to Emily Donovan and the Cape Fear group. Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with you.
Which is why we're seeing EPA action at an unprecedented rate, right?
It is good.
Yeah.
And then, but I think there's a lot of advocacy on the industrial side too.
Sure.
And they're taking that into consideration because there's a lot of activity there that needs to really be considered when you're looking at a big decision like this, because we're not talking just like $1 million. I mean, we're talking trillions of dollars to really do this job.
Right. And for a topic where the science is still in the nascent stages.
early
There's a lot
early
of
days.
unknowns and not understood.
Yeah,
And
right. I'm also seeing a lot of interest in the medical field,
because
trying to connect dots with recognized or symptoms of in certain patients that come through, and they have never in the past have like tried to link or connect an environmental exposure to a scenario. It's been something maybe more direct ingestion from something that maybe a carcinogen that they would recognize like tobacco or something like that, right? This is different now. They're trying to, where do you live? You live in an impacted community. Maybe that's the reason we have cancer rates higher.
Yeah.
And I think the medical field is starting to really look at this.
So the practice of biomonitoring, right, where we look at what's in our environment that's affecting human health, was so obscure and not in like the public domain until PFAS. I feel like PFAS, and probably on the heels of PFAS microplastics, biomonitoring is in the public domain now but it feels to me like the first time. If I'm having friends and family members ask me about this, to me, that's like, okay, we're officially in the public domain now.
Yeah, you sure are. Absolutely. And oh, by the way, Eurofins is one of the leading laboratories that is designed and set up for that type of bioanalytical testing of blood. I talk a little bit about your personal blood sampling kits that you can, offer everyday citizens to determine what type of level of PFAS they may have in their blood.
Yeah, most of that testing is done by researchers who are trying to understand the real effects of our environment on significant populations or demographics. But sure, I mean, it was available to them. We figured make it available to everyone so private citizens can, contribute to their citizen science.
And that's the thing. We need to build a database of this information to have better understanding of the impacts and toxicity of this compound, right? I mean, how else are you going to do it?
Yeah. Yeah. I know. You need large data.
Large data sets.
Yeah.
So that's really important. I think you guys are one of the leaders in this industry, Eurofins, as a laboratory testing company. I mean, talk a little bit about how you have seen the growth in your industry because of PFAS.
Yeah, it changed the dynamic, I think, of the role that we play in the industry, rather than testing just being done according to standard methods, to permit and regulation standards and all of that.
Yeah.
We're charting the path forward as an industry.
Yeah.
From responsible parties to consultants to regulators to laboratories, we're all trying to figure this out together.
Yeah.
And that requires a lot of innovation.
Right.
And development and experiment and research. And that's our strength. So getting to really, bring that to the forefront of something, PFAS was instrumental in that.
I love the advocacy that you guys are doing in the industry too. I know you're very involved with educating the community that we work in every day. Engineers and geologists and scientists, we're all, working together to solve these issues. And I like to say that we're all on mission.
Yeah.
We're all on mission to, do something positive for the environment that we all live in, because we care about each other.
Yeah.
And we're trying to protect the environment and leave it a better place than what we left it. And so it creates this like fraternity of individuals working in it's a bond, so to speak, right?
It is, especially when you're trying to tackle such a challenging issue as this one. The bonds become pretty strong.
And the partner capabilities or opportunities are so immense and numerous, right? I know you are a big partner with us at Veolia, and you do a great job of supporting us. We support you. I mean, that's such a great relationship that we value. I know you value it as well. But when you're out there talking to people, they are genuinely clued in. I would say glued to the TV, but like they're listening, right? They're at the edge of their seat, because you have brought a level of authority in what you talk about. Your knowledge in this space is so great.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just I try to keep up.
trying to keep up. That's a great way to say it because it's always changing and something is changing. And it's the same for me as well. It's like, okay, hey, did you know that New Mexico is the first state in the union to regulate PFAS as hazardous waste? I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
This is unprecedented in the industry, right?
Yeah.
So how is that even going to work? How are they going to roll that out?
Well,
what does that look like?
It is a limited designation.
Okay. Well, good. If you know a little more about it, please enlighten me.
Gosh, I don't remember the specifics off the top of my head at the moment, but I believe it's specific to AFFF.
Okay.
I'm not sure if it goes as far as AFFF impacted waste, but it is
just maybe the pure compound.
It is narrower than just any and all PFAS impacted waste. Yeah.
Okay, so there maybe had some cooler heads were prevailing and made a little limitations on it, right?
Yeah. Or maybe baby steps.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be a future podcast to just talk about that because how do you comply? What's the parameters? Is this truly a RCRA? Framework.
You're right. I think the whole discussion around is fascinating because even if there isn't a RCRA regulation, you still have CERCLA, and CERCLA essentially creates a liability for anyone who's ever touched it. So that kind of covers what RCRA covers as well.
True.
So it is. I mean, I think it's fascinating on how people are making decisions on how to navigate between these and
totally
we talk all about regulation, but litigation is a massive driver for decision making.
Sure. Absolutely. So, and I know there's lots of, attorneys in the litigation phase and defending phase as well, obviously. We've had Robert Bilott on the show twice.
Oh, have you?
Yeah. So I got to interview him in person last year, which was just...
It's pretty surreal, huh?
Yeah, it was. I have to admit it. I was like geeking out, like a fan guy, It was because I told the story to the audience because he was our keynote speaker last year at the EHS Hazmat Summit. So I was able to secure him to be a keynote speaker and he agreed. And so I had to tell the story of how I actually met him. And so I had a friend of mine who was calling me on a somewhat frequent basis, like, hey, have you seen the movie Dark Waters? I was like, no. And he goes, you should watch it. It's very powerful and it's about our industry and it's what we do. You're an environmental professional in this space. You need to have seen this. I'll watch it. So I ended up getting around to watching it 2021 sometime, which was like a year after it actually came out.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, oh my God. This is crazy. It was a great movie.
Yeah.
Knowing that it's true too. That was the other part. It's like, okay, this isn't just like fairy tales. This is real.
Yeah.
So I'm in my recliner after the credits are going up and I get my phone and I look on LinkedIn and I wrote his name on there, typed it up, and there he was. I hit connect. And like the next day he accepted my invitation. I was like, wow. So 2 days go by. I'm like, I'm going to message him.
To ask him to come on the podcast?
Yeah. And I did. And he said, okay. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm going to get this guy. This is going to be awesome. And so took about 2 months after we settled to get him in. And I was able to read his book, Exposure, which gave a whole bunch more insight into what he was dealing with. And, being a former consultant, doing the assessments, remediation, and working with PRPs, I was deep in it. I was all in on this thing. And, interviewed him. It was a fantastic interview. Just loved it. And then to get to meet him in person and have him be the keynote speaker. And I got to interview him after the keynote. It was a special day last year. It was really, really great. And because he has, in a sense, single-handedly been the real individual who's daylighted all of these concerns to the EPA to force their hand to regulate this compound, whether you agree or not agree. And, as the listeners to this, but I think that he's done a lot for us as the industry to protect the people in a lot of impacted communities.
Yeah.
So it was awesome. So I don't know where else I'm going with that, but that was pretty good.
I know what you mean. It is. It is exciting.
It was super exciting.
I did the same fangirl thing when I met him at a conference for the first time. I think it was like 2015. It was before he was really kind of out there on the circuit making public appearances. And he just casually was wandering up and down a hallway by himself. And
that was before the movie came out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Long before. And I saw him and I go, oh my gosh, thank you so much for everything you do. And I had the same moment. So I understand.
Yeah. And it was great. I loved it. It was awesome. And that's what gets me up in the morning and gets me excited to do things like this, is to talk to individuals who have that same passion to do something positive for our environment.
Yeah. And solving complex problems.
Absolutely. And I think the conference here at Battelle, which is a lot of smart people are here.
It's phenomenal for this. I mean, I'm having the most amazing conversations with people about what are we going to do next? What are we going to research? What are we going to try to figure out?
Well, I mean, what are we doing next on the CCL6 and the potential UCMR6 coming out with microplastics and what is the TD?
But I think that's another case of a headline that's missed
the mark on
misinterpreted. CCL is just a place to put things to think about that we might want to do something about, right? I mean, that's effectively, it's just a little holding,
something we want to focus on maybe.
Yeah.
It needs a little time to warm up and get some more clarity on what those compounds may really.
Yeah, but the headlines made it sound like the EPA was regulating microplastics.
That's true. I put it this way. I interpret it as they're considering reviewing the impacts of microplastics. So it could be.
So it's an important step for consideration.
Right.
But there's a huge step that has to come after that to select it for monitoring for UCMR6. And there's no guarantees that selection will be made.
So talk about maybe the challenges with getting it to that point. Like, for instance, the methodology, right? The laboratories that are developing or that want or need to develop a reliable methodology that could be repeated constantly throughout the industry.
So reliable methodology exists, but that's not the hurdle. The hurdle is it has to be an EPA promulgated method to require for UCMR monitoring.
So now
we're a ways off from that.
We're way. So, okay. So more to come on that topic. I mean, because that's
the reliable methodology exists.
So it's already there.
Yeah. Okay. So the foundation for EPA to take and promulgate a method from, that exists.
Well, maybe the next step then for EPA is they know there's a method, but they need to understand, like, what is that potential toxicity of concern?
So they have to decide what it is they're concerned with about microplastics, which type of method serves that need.
Right.
And then just pick a method to move forward with on validating and promulgating, and then they can move forward with monitoring.
But doesn't that also move you into another level of testing outside of just the verification of microplastics are in a substance of water or whatever? But then how about the epidemiology exposure within somebody's body of microplastics?
There's two. So UCMR is just for the sake of occurrence. Does it occur enough to cause a potential issue? So there has to be exposure, right? But there is a second element of determining to move forward with a national primary drinking water regulation, and that has to be that there is a health risk. So you get the exposure from your occurrence data, but then there has to be a negative health impact from the exposure. So they do still need that information, but that's further down the road. They can move forward with UCMR without that.
Okay. All right.
Though it's unlikely they would if they didn't have an indication.
That's kind of what I was getting at. Like, there needs to be a little,
but they don't have to cross that. They don't have to check that box quite yet.
Okay, very good. Okay, good to know. Well, Taryn, as usual, you're a wealth of knowledge and you're exciting to talk with and because you're staying up on the latest and greatest of the regulatory updates. And so I always enjoy talking with you about what's going on in the industry and keeping me fresh and being able to communicate to the audience what's happening and even with customers that I work with as well. So it's awesome.
We want to develop solutions for the right problems, right? If we don't understand what the landscape is, we don't know what we're trying to navigate.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. For listeners who don't know how to get a hold of you and also maybe learn more about Eurofins, how do they do that?
So our website is probably the best starting point. Yep. So eurofinsus.com, but we have a eurofinsus.com/PFAS if you want to check in with us specifically on the PFAS topic. Okay. Yeah.
All right. Sounds good. I'll make sure we get that information for the listeners on the website when this episode comes out. And thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks
really
for
appreciate
having
it.
Me back.
All right.
Thanks for listening and watching the show. If you enjoyed the show, then please share it with your friends and coworkers on social media and tell somebody in person. Thanks for being with us, ET Nation.